this is you being the unique you that God created you to be. And it is the big picture is that God has all of these things. He has all of the colors and all of the personalities and all of the emphasis, and he gives us a bit of himself. And so it's really important that we know who we are and our contribution and our part in expressing and bringing the ripple effects of humanity to our world.
So how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Honest J Interview and Podcast. And I have not recorded interview in a bit of a while, but I am really excited to have it back here with the Duzies. And usually it is the host job to introduce the guest of the interview, but I believe it would be sort of an injustice for me to do this on my part because you have to hear themselves for yourselves. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and also what you do?
Sure. Well, my name is Dan.
And my name is Suzie.
And together we
are Duzie.
And I am the husband of one wife.
I'm the wife of one husband.
And we're the parents of two boys who are now married, and we have grandchildren.
And we have been with Operation Mobilization now 32 plus years. We've been married for 34 years, and our full-time job is to work with international people all over the world.
Because we believe that your life is a remarkable adventure that only you can live.
And we exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive. And
That's what we do.
Love talking about passion, and passionality, I think, is the subject of this interview. And it's really great to be with you. Thank you so much.
This is it's fantastic. Every time I see you guys get off, I'm just like, I'm amazed. Well, as you can see, that they are a very passionate couple who loves talking about passionality, which we will talk about now. So passionality is something. Okay, it's sort of a new word that I'm sure like. Not many people have heard of that word as a norm. You know, you talk about personality. Sometimes we talk about spirituality and etc. as well. But passionality, this is something that you guys are really advocating for and are really passionate about. So can you tell us a little bit about what passionality is?
Sure. About 15, maybe 17 years ago, we created the word because we saw lots of people.
You won't find it in the dictionary. We created it's a doozy word.
Lots of people were looking at what's the purpose of life, and they were looking at personalities. But we realized that what's going to get you out of the bed in the morning and move you forward is passion. It's what causes you to do what you do. And God created each person with a passion, but we were trying to figure out how do we live with passion. And we took about 18 months and figured out how we have this passion statement. And then over the last 15, 16 years, we've led probably about 35,000 people to find theirs.
Yeah, it's really exciting because especially young people and older people as well, one of the biggest issues is identity. Who am I? How am I? And where do I fit? And God has wired each of us so uniquely. In Psalm 119, verse 14, it says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I know that full well. And it's a part of not only being uniquely created by God, but also knowing the uniqueness of my identity. And the passionality statement that we try to help people create is 3 parts. One is my being, who I am. The second part is my desire for others, as I am being who God created me to be. What do I desire for others? And all these parts are unique to each of us. And the third part is what strength has God given me to live out who I am and my interaction and my ripple effect with others.
So for me, my passion statement is simply this: I transform life through creativity.
And I influence potential through connections.
Wow.
So we never have to stop and say, God, what do you want us to do? Because he's already showed us that's what he's created us to do.
Yeah, and it's really exciting because this passionality and this statement has given us real freedom to know when we're in the space that's a great fit for us. It's also something that helps us choose whether we're able to say yes or no to different opportunities that we have.
Right.
Will it allow me to be the
Right.
unique me that God's made me to be.
Right, right, right. A part of knowing like what you're good at and who you are, is also saying at the same answering the same time what you are not really fit for, what you are not really necessarily designed for, or the best at, so to speak. Passionality, that statement and everything, it's actually something really intriguing, really interesting, because I, I have met you guys on the Logos Hope, the ship. Okay.
Yes.
That was 2016, I believe. And it has been a while since then, right? And I am coming back to you guys now because, on the recent years, the more and more I reflect and think about that little passion statement that I did on that ship, it starts to make more sense. It was really interesting in that sense. It was almost sort of like prophetic in a sense, to sort of say that.
Can I ask, what is your passionality statement?
I knew you were going to be asking that exactly at this moment.
Here I am doing it.
Yes, there you are. So when I was thinking through that stuff, I wasn't really thinking so hard about it, but my statement came along to, I think beauty through understanding.
Ooh.
And what I sort of knew about myself was that I kind of like to think. And then it was funny. I think I was trying to find the second word or the third word or something like that. And then you told us to think about it, ponder about it. And then you switch, and then you put on like a background music, but it was really nice jazz background music. And when I heard that, like, it just clicked, like I am in pursuit of beauty. So
it's interesting you say that, Jay, because if you go back in church history, 5 of the main pillars of the early church was beauty, dignity, meaning, transcendence, and community. And these are some of the things today that we have lost. It's something I believe that God's put in our heart. And sometimes we're like, no, we just have to do something. Where in fact, this whole idea that you're coming to understand beauty, that's an incredible thing. And that used to be a much higher priority of the church years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I definitely resonate 100% with that, sort of reflecting, looking back onto the more traditions and the more of the aestheticism that there was, the pursuit of aesthetics that there was in the beauty of God, beauty in the understanding of God, his nature, and the gospel. It was actually since the time when the gospel has become very real and personal to me, rather than it just being a theoretical thing that I grew up with in a church. Since it changed my life, the Lord has just been taking me deeper down into just that fascination of that aesthetics and the beauty of the gospel. What Christ did on the cross, and the meaning of it all, and that's just the depth of who we are and everything. So yeah, I am slightly interested into those sort of like humanities as well. I would be too ashamed to say I'm knowledgeable at it. Would be feeling a bit sorry for others who are actually knowledgeable about it, but I want to say I have the slight interest in that.
Can I just make a comment that your passionality statement has to do with thinking and beauty, and this is you being the unique you that God created you to be. And it is the big picture is that God has all of these things. He has all of the colors and all of the personalities and all of the emphasis, and he gives us a bit of himself. And so it's really important that we know who we are and our contribution and our part in expressing and bringing the ripple effects of humanity to our world, to our sphere of influence that God has given us. And Dan is completely different than I, and we're completely different than you. But as we live in this community and we share in life with each other, and we get prompted to think about God and life and humanity and everything in life, we get a bigger perspective than if we just limit ourselves to ourselves. And so one of the detriments of humanity is that we compare ourselves to others. And no two fingerprints are the same. No two people are the same. We know this, and yet we try to find sameness, which is okay. But when we find the difference, we isolate ourselves, and we don't allow ourselves to be the person that God uniquely created us to be. When we live in our personality, our passionality, and all the aspects that God's given us, then we're able to show up fully alive and live in that fully alive space and bring light and life and new perspectives to people around us.
Yeah, that is very true. That is so true. I mentioned understanding there as well, and what I mean when I say understanding, I think that really has the big part of us striving towards being united, being in one, being whole together. I mean, as much as I theoretically understand that, I need to approach in a different perspective and everything, I still feel the temptation of wanting to sort of just not isolate necessarily, but but to be closer with like-minded people only type of deal, or like personality wise and etc. And it's because it's easier to do that. But I think it really is it's responsibility in understanding the different part of God that he has given to each of us, as you have said. And I mean, you just mentioned that you and Dan are very quite different. And for me, it's kind of difficult for me to imagine that, obviously looking at you guys from the more of a spectator perspective, you guys are like always in sync and everything. And you would just imagine that, man, they must like just share the same brain type of deal, But I guess that is not necessarily the case, huh?
No, I mean,
No.
you're the one who said you like jazz music. If you listen to jazz music, the dissonance is actually what creates the beauty. And sometimes, if you have a jazz band and all you have is lead guitar players, it's not going to go very well. You've got to have the differences. You've got to have that saxophone solo and that conga beat. You've got to have some to actually create something of beauty.
The tension, right?
Yeah. So Dan is an introvert, believe it or not. I am an extrovert. I get energy from being with people, and Dan needs his alone space. And we could go on and on. Dan thinks, I live. Give me the spontaneous, and I'm all in it. Dan is time oriented. I'm Latino, fluid time. There's so many things that are different about us.
It's great.
But we are intentional with our connection and with who we are individually, but also who we are together. And that's maybe why you see us like as a unified Duzie, for example.
Yeah, I mean, even your names are merged together. So, So I wanna move more further in the direction of like passion and calling, right? Also, one thing that I wanted to comment on, I just kept forgetting, wanted to get back to it, was when you mentioned the scripture, I am beautiful, I mean, wonderfully made, fearfully and wonderfully made, and I know it. That is really interesting because I've never I never read that next verse or next a little 2 words, 3 words, 4 words. I can't even count. That's not in my personality. So anyway.
I know it full well.
Yeah.
I know it full well. 5 words.
It's full well. 5 words. Okay.
Whatever.
Well, I mean.
High five, Jay. You got it.
Thank you. The Lord has not necessarily made me a mathematician, so I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. But I've never heard people actually quote that, because like you kind of skim over that all the time because people will want to like tell themselves, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And it's kind of funny and ironic in certain places in some sense, like, and just try to force themselves into like, no, I am fearfully, wonderfully made type of deal. But the real need and the real importance is in that next 5 words. Like, I know it full well, So how can one journey into that place of knowing it full well?
I think, first of all, you have to give yourself permission to take the journey. I think, especially, we have some really messed up theology today about God loves us, but we don't have to like, well, we don't like ourselves, and which is really messed up because in John 10:10, Jesus was very clear. I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Part of the verse right before that is what religion was doing to people in his day. They were like thieves coming to steal, kill, and destroy. And I think today we still sometimes live with that mentality that I'm nothing, I'm a worm, I'm only here because of God's grace, which is true. But yet we are marvelously made. We need to show up. We need to say, God made me. I love what he has made. And I'm going to show up in this world and make a difference.
You preach it.
Rather than this mentality that's like, oh, woe is me. I'm nothing. God can't use me. That's why nothing's getting done. The kingdom is not coming because his people do not have this. I love myself so that I can love my neighbor as myself. The Bible's full of references that we are to love ourselves.
God, others, and ourselves.
But there's some really messed up theology that says you are nothing, and so don't show up. And that is the voice from the very beginning with Eve. When Satan was speaking, you are nothing. You want to be like God? Great, try this. Now you're nothing. And we believe the lie. But if we pursue this fact that we are wonderfully made, then we begin to study ourselves. Because I am in the image of God. When I study who God has made, oh wow, God, you are amazing. How intricate. Is that the right word?
That's it.
How special, how unique, and I'm different than anyone else. So, I mean, it's like a puzzle piece. I love doing puzzles. One of the main symbols in Passionality is this, because God is the whole puzzle, but he's given me my piece. And I need to show up. And I think too often in Christianity, we all want to be that other piece.
Yeah.
I want to be Jay. Everybody wants to be Jay. Let's all be a Jay. Well, the puzzle does not come together if we're all Jay.
The full picture.
And so this is why I believe we have to pursue this path.
Yeah.
God, if you made me, I want to study so much to know who you've made so that I can fully fill that. It's like a balloon. Don't put a little air in it. Fill that thing up so the world can see it.
Yeah.
So that's it. You got me on a button there.
I know, it's a good one.
I am
You're
just
feeling the passion?
I'm so tired of Christians that don't show up because they think it's some kind of well, God doesn't want me to show up. Then you don't know God.
Yeah.
He made you to show up. He made you fearfully and wonderfully. Yep. And we need to love who he's made. Stop this poor identity stuff and realize I'm God's kid. If God had a museum of his best things, I would be in it because I am made by him. So I need to hang there and shine and let people look and say, wow, God is good.
That is so good. This is something that I actually really am intrigued about as well as I reflect more into this, because what we have mentioned there about like lowering self, I mean, there is death to self, there is picking up the cross and denying of self and acknowledging the smallness of who you are before God. This is true and biblical, and yet at the same time that is not the full gospel, because there is death and then there is burial, but then there is a resurrection after that, and generally speaking, I think there is sort of a disjointment between that attributes of the gospel, I think, between like the death emphasis and then the resurrection emphasis. Example, is that you can ask a question of like, okay, which is more biblically correct, that I am a sinner or that I am a saint? And depending on your theology, depending on, your background and tradition and stuff, I think people will give you different answers to that too. As you have said, like that importance of going beyond that. Okay, sure, the foundation is set, right? But you need to grow upwards as well, as much as we grow downwards. So,
if you think of Paul says that, I am the worst of all sinners, but he didn't get stuck there because he also said, so follow me like I follow Christ. There is this yes and yes. And I think if we just say, yes, I'm the worst of sinners and stop there, the world doesn't benefit and God gets no glory. When we show up, God gets glory. But if we show up and it's all about me, he gets no glory either. So there's this beautiful juggling act of our life that we show up.
Yeah, and I think what Dan said earlier, I'd love to piggyback on this saint or this fully alive life is a journey. It's a discovery journey. First, you have to find out what your passion is, who your identity is, your being is, like you found your statement. And then there's another bit of it. It is how you launch it into your life. So many times we know things in our head. We have the information, the awareness. It doesn't really hit our heart. It doesn't connect what we know with what we're really feeling and in connection with God about. And then we have the bodily part of it where we live it out in human form. We get to live out who God created us to be. And currently we're in the midst of a Passionality Plus life launch course. And it's an online course that you can do with a bonus of having group coaching every Monday. Or you could do it as a self-paced course online.
Or you can get private coaching from us.
Yeah, and the whole idea of it is, yes, to discover what your identity is in these three parts, and an anti-passion, really discovering what keeps you from living the way God created you, but also how to launch it into life. Not just to know it here and go, yeah, God, thanks, this is how you made it. But you actually live it day by day by day. And we love journeying with people to find, discover. It is a journey. Most people don't know themselves well enough to identify this. It is a journey, but in partnership with the community and in partnership with God and people who know you, everyone really can find what this passionality statement is.
And Jay, this is what I would say is different now in Passionality than when you went through it. When you went through it, it was like, here are your 3 words and good luck.
Have a great life.
Where today, we're much more hands-on to say, yes, discover these 3 words, but let us help you see how that works every day of your life, at your job, in your dreams. And this session that we're just starting is really for dreamers, people who have a dream. I mean, we're just coming out of COVID, and a lot of people have lost a lot of, life. And it's like, let's get back to our dreams, because those dreams that God gave you are going to be launched forward through your passion. Let us help you connect those things together so you can find momentum.
Yeah. It's so exciting to be on this journey with people.
Wow. Sounds really cool. It sounds really great. And I can, just with that 3 words, I mean, as much as I have had my sort of my own discovery of how that happening afterwards, I can say that it's something that is really worth it. And that is really, I mean, it's really, if you consider that you're going to be living with yourself, for the rest of your life, might as well get to know yourself a little bit, right? I mean, that's sort of saying it in a more of a sarcastic way, but yeah. But the self-reflection and self-journey, that is such an important part. That is really such an important part. I mean, I feel sad. I mean, I feel sorry for some people who have really reached that sort of say something along the lines of like, I've lived this long and I've done this much, but I still don't think I really know, what I am, right? Type of deal. And yeah, such waste that there can be, so. But yeah, I want to move on and ask you that. So you Dan, you mentioned puzzle piece, right? So I want to ask you in terms of like the relationship between passion and calling, right? And there are times where these seems to be in alignment together in a narrative, and there are times there where these two seems to be in contrast from each other, And I think that depends on context, right? Depends on context as well. But I guess the first question that I would like to ask is like, does passion always equal to our calling? And as well as, does everybody have a specific calling in life? Because this is something that, that I remember getting into a bit of a debate with my friends, talking of whether like, does everybody have a calling or not? And I think this is a really intriguing question for many people.
I think you have to first of all define what you mean by calling. If you're talking about this is a call that you feel God has put upon your life, If you're talking in that kind of realm, I think calling then is what you do, and passion is how you do it. So you work within the passion. Who am I in my being? What is my desire for others? And the last one is my strengths. I pull all together. That's how I do whatever I do. Where the calling is refugees, children, youth, couples,
Training,
The couple is very much
designing, writing,
you can build almost a job description around calling. You can't build that around passion. So calling is like your vehicle, but passion is the petrol, the fuel that you put in it. It is what's going to move you forward. It gets you out of bed in the morning. It really is the why, where the calling, I believe, is the who.
The who and like what direction. And sometimes our calling matches up with our profession, but not always. So, we might have a calling to do this, but we're not paid for it. And so our calling kind of gets a back seat, and the profession has to be this. And we journey with a lot of young people that have this as their calling and this as their passion. And if only they could meet those together in the middle, wow, fireworks is going to go off. And yeah, you're going to have a lot more impact, a lot more bang for the buck, should we say. But so many times people have to have a profession or make money because they've chosen this lifestyle and this is where they live, and they need to do this in order to eat and put a roof over their head. And their calling and their passion get set somewhere else. And many, many people that we come in contact with forget it. They're forgetting what God really wired them to do, and they're in an existence lifestyle. They just are doing life, and they're not really what we call living fully alive. We also have a fully alive revolution. And this is a revolution of people that come together. We have a lot of those in our Duzie courses, but we also are just encouraging people to make the choice to show up living who God created them to live, and having those ripple effects in the world. And as people are living in that way, calling, passion, hopefully merging it with profession, when we're able to do that, then we're able to make a bigger ripple effect, because we can put our energies there, and we can live that life.
Yeah.
So you guys do your personal coaching to sort of fitting in personal lives to merge that passion and calling, is it? Okay.
Yeah. We definitely do. I think
every day.
one of the things are different levels in life that people sort of get mixed up with. Your purpose of life is probably not going to change. I mean, for me, it's love the Lord my God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love my neighbor as myself. That is it. That's my foundation. I'm going to build everything on that, and that's not going to change. Where my passionality, that may change a couple times with different desires that I see. It's wow, someone in my neighborhood just was robbed. That may cause me, with my desire is to go into law enforcement. That may be a little change. But if you go into calling, I've met several pastors that have had several different callings throughout their life. We used to work exclusively with teenagers, and then it was more teenagers and college students. Now it includes couples and parents, and our calling is I think it's growing. And then profession, they say right now that throughout life there's a very good chance you're going to have 18 different careers. So if you look, there's the bedrock that you build your house on, then on top of that is the passion, and then on top of that is your calling. It may be more diverse, and then the profession, that's you're going to have a lot of those.
That profession is where you earn your money.
Right.
So it might look like this for a while and then change to this, as opportunities arise. And I think the young people, the millennials and the Gen Zs, for example, they're going to have more professions than people who are of a different age and stage in life, older people, they might have had one profession for life. Our world
Mm,
doesn't look like that anymore, especially with COVID and
mm,
many jobs being annihilated because the world is a different world now.
And new ones
mm,
have grown.
Right. So
yeah.
this is where we need to show up with our passion of what God has given us, knowing that full well, what do I have to offer and how can
Mm,
I merge my job with my calling passion?
Right.
mm, mm. That is really good. That is, I would like to get in more into that as well. Because I can share a little bit of my personal story as well in regards to this as well. But it's like, first of all, what you have said, Dan, what you have mentioned about like who you are, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then love neighbors as yourselves, right? That is the very first calling in which all of us are have received, right? And I think when that is really not the bedrock, when that is not really in the foundation, and then we focus on other things, that's when we tend to sway away into the sort of a distorted message of this being more about a pursuit of your satisfaction. It's more about you living the best life. And there's a bit of that dichotomy that they in a surface level, right? If you just look at a different message that sort of seems to your encourage your desire and your passion, or you're someone like that, I think people may also be sort of afraid to associate that with there's so much of blatant hurt messages that are out there that are just blatantly prosperity as well, that is really about, well, it's just about, you tapping yourself in a way that God can give you the most blessing, and that he can, that you can feel like you're living your best life. You just sprinkle God on top of it, a type of deal, right?
Yeah.
And let me also just unpack a little bit from my own context as well. I grew up in a Christian family, right? My parents were missionaries. Actually, our family moved to South Africa when I was about 9 years old, and it was around the age of like 14, 15-ish. I discovered dancing, right? And then I started. I just loved it, right? It was not like a different fling of passion that just came and went by, right? It just kind of stuck there, and I loved dancing, and I was being involved in a ministry as well. I found some friends who were Christians who were also like dancers and stuff. We went to various places. We did ministries, we did performances and things like that. And I was sort of obsessed with wanting to develop myself in this as a dancer, right? And for me, everything worked out great because it was a Christian context. What I did not discover was that I did not even have that bedrock in the first place. Actually loving God with all my heart. It was actually more of myself sitting in that. Discovering that, that took me through a bit of a journey. Like I hated myself for everything that I was doing. I swore to the world, like I will not dance ever again in my life, blah blah blah. And then it was actually with that I sort of like joined OM, saying like, well, here I am to sort of prove that I'm going to put his will first, type of deal, right? And then after all the process of healing, like it really became something that is secondary. I started dancing again, I don't really now as much as I would like to. I still like to try to get back into it at some point, but it's a tool. But it really is not a thing that has that big part of myself or me trying to define who I am in that, Mm-hmm. So now trying to pack all of that together into the question of like, how can you give yourselves an apologetics to say that this living life to the fullest is not the same context as, life is about the pursuit of your desire and your happiness. And do you yourself see like some people who take this into a different context or miscontextualize or to try to take advantage of it?
For sure. It's very easy to get twisted because we don't start on the right foundation. If you start off the foundation of loving God with everything and loving yourself and loving your neighbor to the same, you basically can just live because you've got the foundation, and you don't have to worry about, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? If you're in love with God, yourself, and others, you're doing it right. The problem is we forget about that and we start focusing on ourselves. We start thinking maybe God can bless me more. Honestly, God can never bless us more. He's blessed us. We are blessed. Period. That's it. Yep. But we're not living. And that's the issue. We keep wanting God to live for us, and He's already created our life. We need to step out there and live. And I think a lot of, especially young Christians, old Christians as well, but a lot of young Christians are living afraid they're not doing it right. What if I take the wrong turn? And I just say, forget that. Get back to love God, love yourself, and love others. Then just live. Just live, because you already have that foundation. Now, as you're just living, then there's the passion, and there's the calling, there's the community, all that stuff.
More unfolds.
That's the beauty of the flower. But I think we're so afraid. What if I fall into abundance mentality? Well, if you're loving God, your neighbor as yourself, great. Get as much money as you can, because it's going to go for your God, for yourself, for others. It's you've got the right priorities. But I think if we forget about the core, then we're always going to get messed up, no matter what. If you go to a poverty mentality or if you go to a wealth mentality, you're messed up because you don't have your core right. But when you have that, I say to a lot of people, when you love God, yourself, and your neighbor as yourself, you can do anything you want because your foundation's there.
Your one is God and others.
You got the rock. So build the house. Build it because you're on the rock. I believe there's a lot of Christians who simply became a follower of Jesus to get to heaven, but not to fall in love with him. And even the concept of just fall in love with God, people are like, what are you talking about? And that's the key.
Yeah, and I think the passionality that we try to help people discover includes those things that Dan's talking about, that you find out who you are, and that is very important. My being, who am I in the core of my being? And then, okay, when I'm being that and I engage with people, what is my hope or my desire for them? And I think this is what sets the passionality statement apart from personality, because personality is like me oriented, but it doesn't necessarily take into account others, unless your personality is like one of these outgoing people. Oh, you're always outgoing, and so you connect with people. But this really discovers, this is me, this is how I connect with others, this is what I desire for them in the process. For example, I'll use mine. I influence. So my being word really represents a lot. It represents influence. It represents love, probably at the very top. Love people. And then I love to teach them. I love to discover about them and equip them and engage with them and provide for them, because my desire for them is potential. And that represents the potential that they have as a human being to know who they are, to walk in that, to feel confident in that, to be fully alive in that, can grow as I get the opportunity to influence them. And I do that through the strengths God has given me to connect with them. Connections is my strength. So I get to connect to them, the Word of God, or this person, or this book, this resource. I connect myself to them. Coaching journeys, conversations, come to this event, let's have coffee together. And the whole purpose, again, is to help them grow their potential. Probably another word for that potential is that growth concept I think you mentioned earlier. So when I'm being who I am, I get to grow those other people, and I do it in this way, where everybody's passionality is very different. Sometimes they want to help as a desire, or serve, or think, or provide, or disrupt. Like, people's desires are completely different when they're being who God made them to be. And once again, we need every one of those puzzle pieces to show up so that we get the full picture that's needed in this world, and that full picture of God through us.
That is the heart that I can resonate with when I reflect on Ephesians 4, as it talks about, like all the different body parts, the joints working together and joining all these things together so that we can all grow to the full stature of Christ as the bride of Christ. And if the individuals are not giving 30, 60, 100 folds if us as individuals are not aligned to his design, that process will continue to be delayed in a sense. And that's a really good thing. Like when I was in South Africa, like my mentor was challenging me, like, will you be satisfied with maybe 10 folds of fruitfulness? You do a couple of you do a couple of things, maybe join a couple of ministries and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there can be some fruits out of that, but there is the possibility, the potential of 100 folds of fruitfulness, and that really stuck with me, and since then it has really been my prayer of like really asking God to help me be faithful, and also just coming back to the importance of knowing where you need to be in order for you to gun for that 100 folds of fruitfulness, And another thing that I wanted to mention as well is initially when I've had that experience of like facing my reality of not having that foundation and everything, right? I needed more encouragements from that place. It's good that you're seeking your foundation, that you are truly asking and questioning whether you are on the solid foundation to ask, okay, loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul, right? And seeing the Holy Spirit work that in your life, and really seeking that first above all things, seeking his kingdom first above all things. And then I was also encouraged by other people saying like, okay, but you need to move. A ship can only turn its direction when it starts to move, and step ahead and step out, and not be afraid of God using process to adjust you into the right course, because I mean, there was a point when I would be so afraid to do anything, because I was so fearful of myself and having that foundation, right? But I think what I've discovered, what I've learned, was that you really need to see God in the journey of that, and you need to trust him, take faith, trust him in that, and to let him work as we step forward. I mean, I think that's sort of a pattern of testimony that we hear from many people, like ministers, missionaries, us being distracted into different things, maybe ministries, maybe missions, or anything else, right? Being sort of distracted into that, and then God just like tugging us and calling us back onto that first love. And I think that's just the journey, and that in itself is something that we should really embrace and excitedly take it as life in full.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, as we talk here, what you're saying, what we're saying is, God introduces himself to us as a father. And when I think of my father, when I think of my dad, I've gone through seasons with my dad. I have an incredible dad. Suzie has an incredible dad.
We're blessed.
When I was younger, he would say things like, don't cross the street, don't go over there. But over the years, I've watched him cross the street. I've watched him go over there, and I grew up. And you know what? Today, I go places, and I don't ask my dad first. My dad lives thousands of miles away. I call him regularly. I talk to him, but something's changed. And I think in our relationship with God, as we mature, something's got to change. If we're still asking him for everything, then we have learned nothing about him. But I spent years studying my father, and I know what he loves and what he doesn't love. I want my life to honor my dad, and I live that way. And he doesn't have to always be telling me what to do next because I know my dad. It's the same thing with the Father. If we know our Father, we need to grow up. We need to stop being babies of God and be children, heirs of him, but we know what he wants. We know the passion he's given us. We know the calling that's on our heart, and we get up and we go do it. And his role changes from, when we're immature, it's like, Dan, don't do this, and here's the list of all the things we don't do, to he sits there and says, I am worshiped by watching you live. And we don't have that concept that we believe
of
today.
God, right?
Yeah, worship is somehow this thing that we do to, it's time to worship. That's ridiculous. We live, and God is watching, not to hit us, not to correct us all the time, but it's like, did you see that? My son just did you, hey, come here, look at this. That's what worship is when we live fully alive. God is like, that's my image. They are being a light in this world. And we have to get away from this, I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong. Get to know your Father and live within the principles that this is on his heart. The Bible isn't a guidebook. It's a story of God and man.
And their love story.
And their love story.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of that. So I think sometimes we way overthink this. He's a father. I'm a son. She's a daughter. I want to get to know my Father so I can live in such a way that honors him and not be afraid to live, because he did not create me just to do something. The day I was born, my dad didn't say, get out and take the trash out. No. He wanted me to live. And I think we've got to get this through our mind that God's desire for you is that you live. And your life will have ripple effects. And that's part of Passionality is just one of the things that we talk about because we want to see people have life. Matter of fact, we're coming to Korea for 3 weeks in July, and one of the things that we're doing there is we're talking to people around the country about this whole thing of what does it mean to live life to the full, because that is the message. I think that Jesus came for that reason, and for some reason we're not talking about it, and it all goes together. It's like a beautiful knot that somehow we've forgotten to tie for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You guys are coming to Korea in July.
Yeah.
I need to come and say hi to you.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
OM
Awesome.
is right now pulling together the scheduled tour, so
Contact OM and
Contact
find
OM
out
and
the
see-
details.
if we'll
All
come in
right.
your direction.
Okay, we'll do that. I think we have covered pretty much everything. I mean, I didn't really ask the questions as exactly as I planned it, but as we spontaneously went on, it just pretty much covered everything that I wanted to discuss and talk about. I would really love to have another opportunity to talk with you guys again about a different topic, a slightly different topic about the Enneagram, as I have mentioned to you guys, because that is also something that I read the book on it, and it was just so intriguing. Like, where did this stuff come from? And
Yeah.
now Enneagram is a little blowing up in a sense. I mean, it's starting to ride the trend and everything. But yeah, I will leave that conversation to a different time. But I would love to discuss about that as well, including like the theological controversy around it, within the body of Christ and everything. And I would love to shed light on that and hear your opinion and thoughts on that as well.
Love to.
That's one of our courses as well. I'd love, just for your listening audience and maybe for you as well, just to, if you want any of these courses that we're training, and really the whole purpose is to help people know themselves and to be able to live fully alive. Courses.duzie.com is the website. And the course in particular we've been talking about today is Passionality Plus Life Launch. And I sent you the link if you want to put that in any of the write-up or on the screen or whatever.
I'll
I
do
sent
that.
you that on WhatsApp. Just if anybody wants to join, we would love to have you join. Right now we're doing live group coaching with it for the next 6 weeks, but it also is a course that people can take anytime if they want to discover their passionality statement, like we've been talking about. and how to launch this into their life.
And the other part of that is I guess we'll announce it here very soon. Suzie and I are starting our own podcast, and it's called Just Live, because these are the things that over and over again we have to understand. What does it mean to just live? So that's also something coming very soon.
Awesome stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a couple of more minutes, but if you do, I would like to hear a couple of stories, like short stories of some of the fruits that you have seen from your ministries. Some encouraging stories of people who have been impacted by the course in the ministry.
We'll start with you. You learned your passionality statement, and you even remember it all these years later. I think that's a piece of it. We'll start with your story. So, front and center, you.
Several years ago, we were on the Doulos, and we came into Cebu, and it's in the Philippines. And we went out together to do this outreach in the city center, and they asked us to do a magic show on the streets with the theme of freedom. And we did the whole thing on freedom. And at the end, I did this straitjacket routine where I escaped and said, if anyone wants to know how to live free, please come up. And there was this, how old was Joy? 12-year-old girl that came up, and she had tears. You could tell that she was a street child. She had dirt on her face, and her tears were like cleaning her face as she was crying. And she said to us, she said, I want to be free. And at first I began to think, well, what does a 12-year-old need to be free from? And as she began to talk, we realized that she was caught in the as a sex slave. She was sex trafficked. And we just gathered around her and began to hear her story, how this is not the life she wanted. She couldn't get free. And just as we did that, there was a lady from another mission that came up, and we helped work out a way for her to get adopted by this lady. And that day she became a follower of Jesus. She got adopted into a new home. And about 2 years ago, we were in the Philippines, and we just heard that Joy graduated with her master's from the university, and she's helping street children today as a follower of God. Just an incredible story of God loves us all, and sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time, and you see things. You just show up and you watch what God's going to do in you and through you, and so that's just one of thousands of stories where we've seen God just do things beyond our imagination.
I think another story that comes to mind that just is fruit that we didn't even know was fruit until many, many years later. We have done a congress called Teen Street. That's what's going to bring us to Korea shortly. In Europe, we did it for 16 years straight, and then internationally for many, many years in different locations. But the one in Europe, we always try to motivate and equip Christian teenagers to know Jesus and to reflect him in the world. That was the main reason for the conference. So for the whole week, we would be training and workshops and small groups about this. And 1 year, as was true for many years, we would invite people who really wanted to live for Jesus and reflect him in their world to stand and declare and make that commitment that they would do that. Well, there was a girl from France who earlier had become a refugee, so she wasn't actually from France. She was from Asia somewhere, but landed in France, got to this conference, and was a young teenager. She gave her life to Jesus that week and dedicated her life to live fully alive and reflect Jesus in her world. And then she went back home. She went through school. She became a medical doctor. And we met her years and years later in Malaysia, again on the Asian side of the world. She was on a mission trip, and she happened to come to one of our training conferences there in Malaysia. And she said, you probably don't know me, but, and she told us her story. And we love to hear stories like that. The story where
she said, you led me to Jesus. You helped me have my mission call. And since that day, I've been working for this day when I'm moving into a country full-time as a doctor, because you challenged us. And it was like, thank you, Jesus.
Sometimes we know about it and we get to be a part of the process. Both Dan and I love mentoring young people and helping them know Jesus, their identity, and we get to have a long journey with them. Sometimes we just have these one-off opportunities where we get to be wherever God has us be at that moment, and we're just faithful to be and to show up how God wanted us to be.
My mentor used to always say, preach, pray, sing, or die at a moment's notice. And I think we always have to be ready. You don't go do ministry. You live your life, and God uses that to minister to other people.
Currently, we just moved into a new house here a couple of months ago, and the neighbor right next door doesn't know Jesus yet. So I get to be salt and light. She was sitting in our living room this morning. We were sharing life and talking about life and just loving her. When I first met her, she couldn't even look at me in the eyes. She was so in a deep, dark, depressed space, really insecure. And today she came into the house. We sat looking eye to eye. We laughed. We had joy. And I think that's just a picture of what love can do in the life of people. We just show up, be ourselves, do life day by day by day. You know, and my goal is not that she becomes a Christian. I'm going to love her no matter what choice she makes. And she is making other statements now. When we first met her, it was like those Christians. And now she's like, I'm so glad I have you as my neighbor, you know? And we get to have that kind of transformational influence in the lives of people when we show up. And she's a work in progress. And my goal, of course, is to love her like Jesus loves her. Whether or not she says yes to Jesus, she's on that path of us getting to love her.
Yeah. And as you know, Jay, I'm a magician. I like doing magic. We use it all the time. It's part of my life. And I don't know if your listeners will be able to see or understand what I'm doing, but in here, this is a box. It's a black box. It's a small black box, but there's something in it.
So what's in the box?
What's in the box? And when we're talking about passion, we're talking about life, we have to ask this question. If this is us, what's in us? What's hidden in the black box? And if I take the top off, you're going to see there is a red box. There's a red box in the black box. And this is our passion. This is what God's put in us. This is everything that's there. But too often we hide it in the black box, in who we are. We just live our life, but we don't let the inside show up. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close the black box just like I had before. And I'm going to take the black box and I'm going to stick it in the red box and close it. So now the black box is inside the red box, which is impossible. But the thing is, now you see what's inside.
Oh,
now
wait a second.
God has done. Yeah. Now you see what God has done. And I think too often we live our life just be in the black box and no one knows what's inside. And we have to realize we need to let the inside, what God has done, become the outside, so people will look and go, I don't know what they've got, but I want to know more. And I think that's everything we do right now with life, is helping people bring the red box to be the main box, and they live within that. So it doesn't mean you get rid of the inside self. It just means you live brighter. And that's what we do. We help people live brighter.
Ta-da!
I don't know what I'm mind blown more by the message or the magic. That is so good.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dan, for giving me a bit
happen. They can both happen at the same time.
Oh, adding another message on top of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Man, thank you, Dan, so much for demonstrating that. I mean, I didn't click what was going on, but I just realized it. Man, you guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this interview, and so much for the encouraging words and the messages. And we can try to see if we can arrange another time for another talk. But yeah, I think this is good. So I think we can. I didn't really think of a proper closure.
Can I finish it for you then?
Sure. Please finish it for
you.
Yeah.
Today, how are you going to think beauty through understanding?
I have felt the sense of beauty and aestheticism already in this conversation today. So this is what I will be pondering on today, and this is what I will be, because I've heard much more of your perspective as well, and just have answered a lot of my questions that I've had. So I will integrate that understanding and paint the bigger picture.
Well, let us end then with a blessing.
May you live fully alive
as you love your life, your world, and your God. My name's Dan.
My name is Suzie. Together we are Duzie.
Live fully
and love fully. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share life and passion with you.
God
Thank
bless.
you so much. Thank you so much. Wow, okay, that's a wrap.